Visit us online at burningrubberradio.com for recipes from the NASCAR chef, John Dix, and more great content.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, that dang old internet, man, you just go on there and point and click, 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 click. It's real easy, man.
Now back to more Burning Rubber Radio.
And we have got a whole host of things to talk to you about this week on Burning Rubber, baby. We got Verstappen, we got Smoke, we got Seabell, we got Hocevar. It's a whole plethora to get in under 30 minutes, Andy. I think we can do it.
Good try. Yeah, we're going to give it a good try, man. It's been a heck of a week in NHRA, like you guys were talking about on Friday. Turned out to be a great thing for Smoke. And, of course, we got the All-Star Week behind us. This coming week, we're going to be looking at Larson running in the Indy 500. Starting 21st, but I got something for you right out the gate, buddy.
19th, Andy.
Okay, I got something for you right out the gate, Wayne.
Okay, hit me with it. What you got?
Well, as we were talking about last week, the Burning Rubber Radio 500, today I went down there to the Freedom Factory, which is near me here.
No, you
I
didn't.
did, believe it or not. Okay. I did. Go look on our stinking Facebook page.
Folks, I swear he is trying very hard to stuff my fat ass in a race car. I don't know how well that's gonna work.
That's all right. I talked to Cletus McFarland today, man. He was out in front of that place working on a jet on his runway at his airport and everything, and told him about what we're wanting to do, and they're ready to listen. So we've got a lot of things coming down the pike on the new Burning Rubber Radio 500 that I hope to be running before the Daytona 500 next year. And yes, we are. We're going to put Wayne's fat ass in a race car.
I don't see how well that's going to work, but I think Zach has a question for you.
Do I get to race too?
Hey, buddy, if you got to shell out some money, come on down there and have at it. We're going to be running, hopefully, we're going to be running in his Crown Vics down there. So we're going to have a good time.
Great.
It's going to be fun.
Wait in the car, and I'm going to stuff him in the wall. Capiche?
Okay. All right, Wayne, what do we got, buddy?
Man, we have got a whole bunch of news that we have got to touch on in just a short amount of time here. And might as well start it off the way the weekend started here. Formula One, Andy, this past weekend, they were out in Imola in Italy. And Max Verstappen, God, I swear, this cat just can't stop winning.
He's does your favorite, ain't he?
No, hell no.
Only his second win of the season.
Hell no. He is not my favorite to win. I'm originally a Lewis Hamilton guy. I mean, that's just where it's always been for me. And,
okay.
Yeah, welcome to the pain that is Ferrari's strategy.
Yeah, tell me about it, but we won't go into all that here because we've got Monaco this weekend. Hopefully Lewis can, make some kind of a comeback, but we shall see.
It's the biggest day in motorsports.
Yes, it is. We love it. But we'll touch on that here in just a moment. Max Verstappen this past weekend here. It's the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari.
All right. Whatever.
Like I said, so the great part is, folks, virtually what that means, it's the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at the Autodrome International Enzo Edino Ferrari, meaning the Ferrari family.
Drome. You gotta pronounce that D. It's not Rome, it's Drome.
Did you? Oh my, Andy, I'm gonna fart on him. I swear. But
don't want that.
You got enough gas in the tank for that one.
But either which way, no. So did you pay attention to what I said here, Zach? So I said it correctly the first time. The Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari. Okay, that's
okay. What about it? What about it? Let's go.
That's the Italian pronunciation. But for those of us like Andy who can't pronounce shit when it comes to foreign stuff, it is the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at the Autodrome International Enzo and Dino Ferrari, meaning the Ferrari family that owns the Autodrome International there in Italy.
You made Andy pass out, man.
I'm about to go to sleep here, man. We've talked about this fucking name about 10 times.
Not 10 times, but close enough here. But either way.
Just call it the abbreviation, the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. That's it.
that's it. But either which way here. The 4-time world champion Red Bull driver made a, as Speed Sport puts it, a stunning move around point leader. I think
Oscar Piastri.
I was going to say, there's actually a misspelling in their article because they called him Owakar. Owakar Piastri, Oscar Piastri, for those of us who actually know the guy, through the Tamburello chicane and built a steady lead en route to his second win of the season. So congrats goes out to Lewis Hamilton on taking home, or not Lewis Hamilton, excuse me, Max Verstappen on taking home yet another.
The minister of misinformation.
Hey, wait a minute. The minister of misinformation only applies if this show goes outwards and I didn't correct myself during the taping. Again,
not misinformation. He just couldn't read.
No, that's all right. He's been named by other sources outside of here. Anyway, let's get
Floyd up the Grove.
This thing going,
Floyd
buddy.
up the Grove and the NAPCAR Outcast. But yeah, that's either which way. Moving on now over to the NHRA here, and Tony Stewart Racing, John Force Racing, both doing some great things this past weekend at the Route 66 NHRA Nationals. Tony Stewart claims his second top fuel win of the career that he is starting to build over there, and ironically, second win in his rookie season. So,
and he's the points leader coming out of there too. That's awesome. And he won convincingly in his last pull, man. It was really great. Good to see Smoke win. And hell, if he's like Larson, he can win in anything. I was just wondered if
Smoke can't win in a race car.
I just don't understand. I just don't know if Larson can win in a dragster.
You know, I don't know. That would be interesting. I would actually love. You know what? The two guys, if Larson can pull off the double this weekend in Indy and Charlotte, I would then love to see him get in a top fuel car and go head to head with Smoke. And the reason I say this is because, you know, from the history books, Tony Stewart is the only multi-discipline driver to actually complete the double.
Yeah, and that's just something else, man. Tony Stewart, excellent job.
Yep, Tony Stewart had an excellent run here. He goes 3.777 at a run of 329.10 miles per hour. And then, but talking about funny cars here as well, Andy, and we got to talk about John Force Racing because it wouldn't be right if we didn't. Jack Beckman, who is the, I get more or less now the permanent driver for John's Peak Antifreeze Chevrolet, takes home another Wally this past weekend at Route 66 for JFR. And the one guy that we've been hoping to talk about for quite some time, we finally get to talk about him again. Gage Herrera gets himself a win at Route 66 this past weekend. So good stuff for all three classes in the NHRA. Now, it also would not be, we would besmirch NASCAR. Not like we've done that a million times already, but we would besmirch our NASCAR fan base if we did not talk about the interesting racing this past weekend at North Wilkesboro, starting with the Craftsman Truck Series here and the final lap of Saturday's Window World 250. Literally 2 lead changes, a side-by-side battle amongst teammates, and a winner in Chandler Smith, Andy.
And another snake bit Corey Heim.
Oof. Yeah, I'm going to die on this hill, gentlemen. Corey Heim was not going to win that race if that race stayed green.
No, but
he just keeps not going to win that race if it stayed green.
He continually gets snake bit here lately. He's won though since I said that the first time. So, but poor Corey Heim. But
that's
anyway,
the thing. You just got to keep saying it, and he'll keep on winning. So. That's kind of how we want it. But I'll tell you what. Speaking of snake bit here, we got to move over to the Cup Series and talk about SVG. Man, leads at the halfway point of the All-Star Open, takes the pit stop, has a bad choice in strategy, gets mired all the way back in the field, and ends up wrecking it up with Todd Gilliland when he, in my opinion, had the best chance to transfer into the All-Star race.
I agree, and there was a lot of pissed off people about that.
Oh yeah.
Well, you had SVG also talking about, he was wondering if he was using up his tires too much. He was wondering.
Well,
if he needed to back
Wilkesboro
the
in
pace
general
up.
just uses up tires way too much, even with the new surface.
Well, yeah, but as a driver, you need to pace yourself as well. And he didn't know if he just had blistering pace or if he was, driving the car too hard or anything along those lines, it's a hard line to follow sometimes. And that's one thing he's going to learn with getting into an oval sport. But, this is the most competitive that we have seen him on an oval thus far.
And the other interesting thing, too, is that with Wilkesboro, in previous years, since its reinception here for the All-Star race, it used to only have 2 grooves that you could run on it. And even Larry Mack pointed this out.
I agree.
But
and
either which way,
this was a multi-groove.
Right, but the 3rd groove came in this time around, and you saw a 3 wide, 4 wide, even for that matter, in some points during both the All-Star Open and during the primary All-Star race. But a point that you brought forward off the air last night, Andy, while we were all sitting around here in the studio watching the race, is that these cars are, especially for this race, and I think it's because of the diffuser that they choose to use when it comes to the short tracks, they are so aero dependent that you could, literally, if they got out in clean air, they were fine. Like if they were getting out, single file and just spreading out, they were fine. But in that group setting, even though a lot of them had some great racing, most of them, especially the Ford camp, they were dump trucks.
Well, if you look at Brad Keselowski coming out leading a bunch of laps off the beginning of the race, Joey Logano had a hell of a lot faster race car than he did and could not get around Keselowski because Keselowski was diamonding off the corners on the high groove. Yep. And that was all an aero push that these damn dump truck Gen 7s do on short tracks. And NASCAR's got a problem with that, and they need to fix that because it's just, like what happened at the end of the race.
Yep.
Seabell gets pissed off, and how does he get around to take the lead in a faster car? He had to move Logano.
Yeah,
but that's also classic short track racing, bumping and banging, getting them out of the way and moving them up the groove to get that racing done. And Logano was pretty irritated at the end of the race. I'm not actually sure why he was completely irritated, but he was pretty irate about how he was raced to get that win. But at the same time, let's take into account, building off of Andy's point, that hand, building off of Andy's point with the aero dependency when it comes to these race cars, it's not all about the diffuser. I mean, it kind of is, but a lot of characteristics that play into that is how low they're putting these tire pressures, and Goodyear told them that they don't want to see tire pressures lower than 12 PSI, and let's just think back a week ago when they were running at Kansas Speedway, they had PSI as low as 9 or 8 in those left side tires. They have to drop them so low because of the ride height restrictions on the Gen 7 car, because the diffuser won't activate if it's not close to the ground.
Right. And then the other thing, too, is that with that diffuser, and this was also another point that Larry Mack had brought forward as well, is that choice in diffuser literally robbed the car of 650 pounds of downforce.
That's right.
So it went
Makes
from
them tight through the center.
Right.
You saw just how much wheel Logano was putting into that car.
Exactly. Tight in the center, but loose on entry and loose on exit. And again, that's what made these cars the full-on dump trucks that they were last Sunday night in the All-Star race. There was not really much going on when you were in the straightaways. Now, you got into the corners, you had guys bumping. You had guys literally doing overtake passes in the corners when typically at North Wilkesboro, passing in the corner is what leads to the most incidents.
And I agree. And then you got guys like Cindric who keep running out of talent and up into everybody else and wrecking the hell out of the entire field dang near with the way that he was driving out there.
Well, I mean,
don't forget though, gentlemen. Aside from the All-Star race and aside from the truck race, we had 2 amazing late model races and an absolute thriller of a modified race. That was awesome racing. From
Oh,
all the
my God.
Let's win the modified race. Landon Lewis won the late model stock car race, and Caden Honeycutt won the pro late model race. He actually did double duty in the late model stocks and the pro late models, and he ran the truck race where he's still trying to make the playoffs right now. He's actually
And that's right. And guess what? Talking about that, our poor Joey Coulter had a pretty bad day in the modifieds, man. But he wasn't the only one. I think the whole 90% of the field heard Joey talking afterward. He said pretty much everybody had a shit day.
There was a lot going around.
And we obviously, folks, we know Joey probably better than most anybody will ever get to know Joey, aside from his wife and his own family. And when Joey starts yelling about a race car, you know there's a problem.
Oh, there's a bad problem.
Joey's
like real, and if he gets pissed off, only time I've seen him really kind of over the top, how he's a real quiet guy. Now, we had this gig probably 10, 15 years ago out in Kentucky where we had a sledgehammer next to an old junk car. And, yes, Zach?
I'll let you finish, but
all right.
I just found some great news that people would love to know about.
Okay, but anyway, little Joey Coulter, not little, but he's gotten quite big.
Yeah, he was.
But
he was
anyway,
skinnier back
he
in the
was
day.
out. He was out there beating the hell out of a car with a sledgehammer. That was the most riled up I've ever seen him in my life. Anyway, what'd you have, Zach?
So, I know Wayne said we touched that hand, this hand. It's my right, not my left. Think being a race car driver, I know which way to go.
But as you were saying,
in any case, Wayne said we were going to touch on biggest day in motorsports, and biggest day in motorsports, as all motorsports fan knows, that 9 a.m. you got the Monaco Grand Prix, 2 p.m. you have got the Indianapolis 500, and about 6, 7 o'clock in the night you have got the Coca-Cola 600. Well, we all know that with NASCAR taking the new TV deal this year, and Amazon Prime is taking over for the Coca-Cola 600 coverage, Amazon Prime has stated there will be no full-screen commercials while the green flag is out during the Coca-Cola 600. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we want to see for a Crown Jewel racing event.
Exactly.
Hell yeah, that's good stuff, man. That's good. Now
that, and it was also confirmed
that way. This guy over here, man, he gets over the top. Crown Jewel racing event.
I love racing.
Well,
I'll be racing at Charlotte Motor Speedway in 3 weeks now?
Yeah, something like that. But the other news that has been confirmed as well here too, folks, we told you we would firm this one up too, because I wasn't 100% sure, because it's always been on one network in the past. But for the first time this year, the 109th annual Indianapolis 500 is going to be live and in living color on Fox.
And the blackout has been lifted, so folks in Indy can see it on TV.
Yep.
Because they sold out. They absolutely sold out. More than 350,000 people are going to be at one of the biggest tracks in the world to see some of the greatest racing in the world. And per what Andy was talking about with Larson starting 21st, he's starting 19th now because two of the Penske cars failed tech after qualifying.
I didn't know this. No wonder. Beautiful. I was like, why are you telling me he's 19th? He's 21st. I saw the damn qual. Really, I did not know about this qual.
Two of the Penske cars failed tech. I think Wayne might have that pulled up because I don't remember which one it was.
I don't have it right off the top of my head, but folks, when we find it, it'll go on our Facebook page, so they'll be on the lookout for that.
But two of the Penske cars did fail tech, and there was an announcement made actually by the president of IndyCar stating that the Indianapolis 500 is, one of the big spectacles in racing, and they want the rules respected because two spec parts were manipulated, I believe, and that's what caused them to get disqualified from qualifying. Wow. And yet a lot of people saying that if they got disqualified during qualifying, that they needed to get bumped from the field and put the one guy in. Now, only one of them would have ended up getting bumped because there was only one person who was going home, 34 cars to qualify for a 33-car field. But in Indianapolis fashion, they have relegated both those cars to the tail end, 32nd and 33rd, rather than bumping one and sending them home and taking the next guy in, because they believe that regardless of the disqualification, that those cars still would have made the field anyway. And I mean, you can't necessarily blame them when you're talking about Penske, but I mean, there have been times in the past where they got bumped, like back in the 80s. They actually did get bumped from the Indy 500.
There's another reason they probably didn't get bumped, because the guy that owns the cars also owns the track.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Well, he also owns the sport.
There was a little
in the sport,
little bit of that involved, but
yeah.
Either way, there, folks, we have got to get ready to wrap it down here. But again, we are in Memorial Day weekend, or up and coming. It is time for the greatest weekend in racing history, as it is
and to honor our brothers and sisters in service, domestic and foreign.
That's right.
You got ahead of me, Zach. You got to quit doing that. You got to quit.
I'm fast paced.
You got to get off the methane, my friend. Get off the cocaine. Quit. Slow it down. Slow it down.
Ooh, wow, that actually popped my ears. Ouch. All right, maybe I will calm down a little bit.
There you go.
Oh.
But either way, folks, here we have got to get out of here for another week of Burning Rubber and getting ready to start the greatest weekend racing for Memorial Day weekend. For myself, for Zach, for Andy DeLay, I am producer Wayne. Thank you guys for tuning in for another week of Burning Rubber Radio. And if we don't see you throughout the rest of the week, it just depends on if we have a guest this week for a fast lap and possibly a check-in for the Gas and Go this weekend. If not, though, have a safe and happy Memorial Day weekend. Thank you to all of the brave men and women who serve in the military, both alive and those that have passed on. We thank you for your service. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have this great country we call America.
That's right. Burning rubber, baby.
Burning rubber, baby. Until next time.